Welcome back everyone, and today we're going to talk about Parrot Shoes. This is something that every single person struggles with. I don't think there's one person on the planet that doesn't have Parrot Shoes. We've all got them whether we like them or not. So Parrot Shoes are all about, if you think about it, it's like a little bird sitting on your shoulder. I just envisage them as, you know, like the pirates where they've got their parrot and it's, you know, always talking back. It repeats everything that you say. It might repeat stuff you don't want it to say, especially out loud, and it just gets louder and louder and louder and louder. The more that you try and ignore it and get rid of it, it just keeps on going. So another term that I use for it is racket. It's because it is such a racket. If it gets out of control, the parrot goes a little bit batty. A batty parrot. What happens is it just gets really noisy inside your head, and you're just like, eventually you can't see the wood for the trees because you're so drowned out with all this negative stuff that's going on. So I look at it as like those old vinyl records where it's the same song playing over and over. So what I'm going to show you in the next series of videos is really how to change your state, like, you know, or tips on it, and then where to go to look for ways to break that so that you don't have that same racket, that same bird on your shoulder going with, you know, a story about whatever it is. So you know, if you think about those records, those vinyl records, and I've mentioned this before anyway, where it plays a tune and it just keeps on playing and it just keeps on playing, and you know, those little needles that they have on it, with those old gramophones, the way that it worked is it would sit in the groove, and you know, if you play that song long enough, it deepens the groove, it goes over and over the same thing. And we've all got our own records and we've got whole albums and sometimes entire cupboards, you know, different album for love, different one for work, different ones for, you know, family, different ones for friends, different, but you know, you've got a whole stack right there that you just go, oh yes, and I've got that, and then we play it. So what actually happens, and the reason that this happens, is we have something which I'll go into as well, where we delete and distort and we generalize information to suit our maps of the world. So we want to have it where we understand life the way we want it, and if it doesn't fit, then we change it accordingly. And we land up sometimes having incorrect records playing compared to what reality is. And I'm sure you've had this. Like, I mean, I've had you know, quite some very interesting sort of comments, and you'll go, how did you even arrive at that? You know, it's like couldn't have been further from the truth. I mean, there's nothing even close to what is the reality around that, or what was actually said, or what was actually done. But what we do is we seek evidence. As humans, we look for evidence. So we'll go, right, you know, I wanted this to happen in a certain way, you know, or I had an expectation, which is typically what it is, an expectation that has not been met, and so we adapt it to fit, so that we are more comfortable and we can handle it. And what happens is we then seek evidence, so we compound it. So we then go, right, you know, oh, there they are again. So let's give you an actual example. You know, your husband or your partner isn't, you know, helping you with the dishes after you're coming home from work, for example, just as an example. Okay, it's not an uncommon one. I have had this, you know, and wife is tired, you know, mum been busy, big day, now got to play mum and not getting the help that she had hoped from her partner, and she's asked, look, can you know, do the dishes? And he goes, no, I'm not open to that, or I'm too tired and I'm not going to do it. And then what she does is she distorts it and she goes, right, okay, well, I'll forgive it for this time. And then they do it again, and then the next time it's just like, oh, there it is again. So you compound it, and then the next, you know, maybe the next week again, she's like tired, same scenario, and it's just like, oh. So what we'll end up doing is we're going, oh right, well, he is now always unhelpful. He's just never there for me. You know, you go into that generalization zone, you distort the truth when the reality is he just doesn't like to do dishes. Okay, so you know, he may help in a lot of other ways. He might mow the lawns, he might, you know, clean the windows, he might, you know, play with the kids or do something else. But if that's a big bugbear for you, that your trigger is, oh, there he is sitting on the couch. So it might be something like a visual that will trigger you. It might be something that they say. So you've got to be aware of what the actual trigger is. So very, very important, because if you can't identify the trigger, you won't be able to, that's what starts the record playing. That's the thing that gets that parrot or that song going around and round and round. So you've got to identify exactly what it is. Sometimes it's a combination. So you might have, for example, oh, there he goes again. He's just sitting down on the couch and he's got his device and that's it. He's gone and I'm trying to do it all. And, you know, so you go off on this tangent. There's the parrot. There's this, you know, there's that record going, oh, you know, he's never here for me. He just doesn't support me. Every single day it's the same old, you know, he just doesn't seem to see it. He doesn't think it's important. He dismisses me. He's unsupported, you know, and then you go in this downward spiral and you land up, this parrot's going, told you so, you know, there he goes again. He's doing it, you know, and I call it a racket because it gets so loud and so noisy that if you play that over and over and over again, eventually the negative emotion is tied to the dishes not being done by your husband or your partner. All right, so you might go, oh, he's just never there for me, which is in reality could very well be untrue. You know, just the fact that he doesn't like to do dishes doesn't mean that he's not there for you when the chips are done. Just because he isn't, you know, keen to do the dishes doesn't mean that he doesn't do all these other things like the washing or the mowing of the lawns or the whatever the case might be. But it's that we do something called deleting. If it doesn't fit our own map of the world, what we do is we hit the delete button. You know, if it doesn't fit, we just go boom, gone. And then we another thing that we do is distort. So we twist the information to make it mean something else. Oh, he's just doing it because he's lazy, you see. So that's an example. He could well be tired from a very heavy day, or he might have injured himself playing rugby or, you know, sports, or, you know, because he was at work, you know, and lifted up something rather strenuous. He might be old, he might be just, you know, whatever it is, there might be some other reason, but because we twist it, we want it to fit into our map of the world, to fit our story, so that we can make ourselves right and them wrong. So what we want to then look at is that sometimes then what we do is we end up going into sorry, the camera was just going on to dark mode there. We go into generalization zone. So it means now you go from, he sits down in the chair. The trigger is he sits in the chair, or you see him sitting in the chair, or you see something, or, you know, he cracks open a beer and he, you know, or it's like he's on his device, whatever the trigger is. It might be a visual, it might be something he says, it might be, you know, he might tap you on the shoulder every single time and go, right, I'm just going to go sit down. So it's something you see, something you hear, some kind of kinesthetic thing like a touch or a feel. And when you combine those two, boom, you're off in, you know, like the horse that comes out of the gates, you know, racing, or those hound dogs, those greyhound dogs, you know, the gates are open and boom, they're away and they're just racing, you know, full tilt, going to do their thing. So that record's now playing, and it's like now you shift into generalization zone, and now you're going, I told you so, he's never there for me. Whenever it's all about him, you know, oh, poor me, you know, like I'm not tired, and why must I always do the dishes, and, you know, I'm over this, you know, he should be able to pay for someone who'll do it for me, whatever it is. You go on this whole big mission, and it just goes round and round and round, and then they do it again, boom, and you're into it every single day, and you're digging that groove into that vinyl record. So your story becomes your life. And if you Tony Robbins always talks about, you change your story, you change your life. This is the same thing. We want to change, we want to scratch that record so deeply that it just doesn't play. So you get to a point where I would have it where you guys are in a situation where originally you might have been triggered by that, but you're not. So it's going to still happen. I'm not saying it's not going to change the way that person behaves, or how life is going to treat you, or that things are going to be any easier out there, but it becomes easier and more manageable because you have changed your state. You can handle it better. You can make it mean less. You're less affected by the emotional impact that originally just swept you away, where emotion was driving your boat. You can go, I'm just disconnecting from that. I'm turning off that engine. I'm just not going to play that record. So what we have to do, this is the starting point, is you actually have to identify the trigger, okay, and what are the stories? What is the record that I'm playing? What's my little parrot that's sitting on my shoulder? Or another way to say, what's my racket? What's the this big thing that I keep on, and you'll know, because you get that feeling. It might be that you get angry, you get overwhelmed, you get sad, you get anxious, there's some very strong emotional type, or sometimes unemotional, like complete disconnect. It's like, you know what, that's odd. I should be feeling about that. There's something not quite right there. And is it that, it's just like, oh, here it goes again. Like for a man, it might be, this is more common I find with men, they tend to stonewall. So they'll switch off. So their story is, oh, there she goes again. She's nagging. She's just nagging. And I'm over it, and this is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to switch off. I don't hear her. I don't see her. I'm just going to do my device, or I'm going to read the paper, or I'm going to just do my own thing, go out with the lads, whatever it is. They will just stonewall. They'll do the complete opposite. So that's their story. It's like, oh, she's nagging. There's the generalization. She's not. She's actually asking for help. So you can change the label. So there's different ways that we can interrupt that pattern. There's a lot actually that you can actually do. But first of all, I want you, to look at, what are my triggers? And if you can't identify your triggers, get some help through an NLP coach is really good for this, because that's what we're specifically trained for. That's what we know what to be looking for and how to elicit that out of you if you're not clear. So look for an NLP specifically trained coach, or you might even find, I think maybe like Coach You Guys might have this training. I'm not entirely sure. You'd have to ask them. But it's, what is it that's setting you off? Sometimes it's really obvious and sometimes it's not. For example, you might suddenly hear some music and you'll go, oh, it makes you incredibly sad, and you actually have no idea why. And you have to go back to when you first heard it. Maybe it was that you broke up with a boyfriend years and years ago, and it just brings back so many sad memories. However, there's the opposite side of the coin, where it's the flip side is, oh, that's beautiful music and it set me off on feeling really, really good, and it's just like, oh, I've got such fond memories of that. I had my friends and we were out carefree and we didn't have any worries in the world, whatever it is. So that's an example of a trigger. It could be, and it's normally an environmental thing that kicks in, that triggers your internal emotional state, positive or negative. Now, if it's positive, great. It's very likely you don't want to change it. But if it's obviously negative, you've got to identify what it is, and then understand. This is what all these videos are about, is understanding yourself. How do I work? You look under the bonnet of a car, and I want you to get to the point where you can go, oh, there's the carburetor, there's the alternator, there's the radiator, that's this part of the engine. Oh, I'm out of water. Oh, I need oil. So that you can immediately go, when you start hearing that clackety clackety clack noise in your car, that you're driving, you'll go, oh, That's right. That doesn't sound good. Got to change that. So it's the same thing. What's that record? Oh, what's that parrot? Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. Settle down, birdie. Let's have a little conversation here. Where's that coming from? So we have different records. We have different, parrot songs, whatever you want to call it, and different triggers for different things. So what I would like you to do today is take a little bit of time to invest in yourself. Take that next step in your shoes on the right path so that we can get you on the right path, moving in the right direction, so that you're going where you want to. I don't want you to get to the end of your life and have regrets, people. So take these little steps. Big steps are much harder to take, especially when you're a lot older. Let's take these little steps now, and it doesn't matter what age you are, you can all take little steps, and every little step will get you in the direction, going on the path that you actually need to make that change. So it's like 2mm shifts, I call it, where it's just, it can be a slight shift just in the way you think about something, and then suddenly it's actually a massive change, because that was the underpinning motive for your negative behavior. If you can just have a side, get to the point where you go, I know that trigger, I know that parrot, I know that song, I'm not going to go there. And I'll give you a whole raft of different techniques that you can use, suggestions of what you can do to interrupt those patterns. I mean, you can already go on to, I'm going to be making available on the website, which is still being produced, all these little toolkits that, tools that can go in your emotional resilience toolkit that can help you manage your emotions no matter what. So it's just the same as, I was talking about the car, where you lift the bonnet and you go, right, I want to change this and this, spanner, hammer, jack, whatever it is that you actually need in order to do the changes, oil, so that you can whip open your little emotional resilience kit and go, right, this is what I'm going to actually do in order to break this pattern. So first of all, so that'll be things like, in this instance, to remove the emotional charge, I'd be looking at the EFT technique, which is the emotional freedom technique. I'd be looking at EMDR, which helps to break that pattern, that record, and just really, so that it doesn't play over and over. Critical one, really good tool. Havening really gets rid of the emotional discharge, but it doesn't. What you want to do is have it where you can get on top of your emotions, then identify what's triggering it, so that you don't have to play that story again. You have to know what the triggers are, what's the story, and then you'll be able to go, right, now I've clocked you. I know that you're the radiator. I know that you're the alternator. I know that you're the spare tire. I know whatever, the nuts and the bolts or whatever, whether it's a big issue, whether it's a small issue. And what if you can invest in yourself today, what I would suggest that you do is you write down, what are the things that trigger me, that make me feel bad? So look at each sector of your life. Okay, it might be, am I happy in my job? Yes or no? If I'm not, what is it that doesn't work for me? And you can work it out from there. Just start funneling down, go what we call chunking down in NLP. We want to get you down to the specifics. It might be that, is it the job, or is it the boss? Or is it one of your co-workers, that's getting you into a negative state? Can you then, once you've identified it, it's like, well, can I manage that? Like if it's someone who's, side irritation, and she's just cranky, and she comes in and she's, a bother. But she's an accountant and I'm in production, and so we hardly ever cross paths. I can handle that. If it's a boss who's in my face all the time and he's triggering me, why? Okay, do I want to deal with that every single day? Or is it that I'm specifically triggered, or is it everybody? So you can start understanding in perspective, in conjunction with others that are around you. It might be that you've got a father figure that used to do the same to you, so you need to deal with your proverbial from your past. So that's when you now need to know, you go and investigate that, because it doesn't matter where you are. If someone like that comes into your life again, you're going to get triggered. So emotional discharge through things like EFT, EMDR, the havening technique, which you can buy. They're very, very cheap. I've got a bundle, offer as well. brilliant package. Everybody should have those 3 at least in your emotional toolkit. And there'll be more. There's all sorts of things that I'm going to be giving away, ideas that you can go away for free. The actual techniques I'll put up for a very reasonable rate for you to make shifts in your life. So I really hope you found that useful. What I would love for you to do is look at each sector of your life. It might be relationships, it might be, romantic ones, and then it'll be, family relationships. It might be, just your co-workers. It might be buddies. Okay, and see what's working. And when you get that sideswipe, swept away kind of emotion, that's when you go, oh, what's going on here? And then when you get that downward spiraling talk, okay, very important. Now, the next video that I'm going to talk about is state shoes. Very important for changing and scratching that record. So please go and do watch that when it comes out, because it's really key. I can't tell you, it's so underrated, it's not funny. And it is one of the most core basic things that you can actually do to make a change, to scratch that record, to change the story, to change your life, to get you in new shoes on a path going your way, the way you want. Okay, all right, I hope you found that useful. If so, please thumbs up, like, share. Please share this with somebody that you think that you could make a difference to, and hop over to the Facebook group and get chatting. Thank you so much. Bye now.